Hey guys, Alex Kazor from SteelersDepot.com back recapping the Steelers preseason finale, a loss to the Carolina Panthers 18-6. And as much as I've talked about the value of four preseason games and how I think the format should stay because of the reps it gives to those bubble guys and the guys that aren't going to be on a team that need that tape and that experience and deserve it. Obviously, these games are pretty tough to watch as fans, and even for someone like me who loves trying to watch these guys and dive into this tape. Tough game to watch. Very sloppy game offensively. So we'll kind of roll through this at maybe a little bit quicker pace than we have in the past as we prepare for Week 1, the Monday night opener, September 12th against Washington. Quarterback, again, we're going to run through stuff position by position. We'll start with quarterback, 59 total yards of passing. That might be one of their lowest outputs, even in a fourth preseason game, and who knows when. I'm just debating if I really want to look it up and spend that time and energy, but clearly 59 yards is not a whole lot to work with there. Andrew Jones gets the start, plays most of the first half, not the whole thing. I think Renner got a series at the end of the second half. Neither of them did a whole lot there. The offensive line, especially once the second team or the full second team came in after Alejandro Villanueva and Ryan Harris went sat out and were done for the day. There's just not a whole lot there, and it's really tough to evaluate this group right now. Renner did show an arm, had a couple vertical shots to Marcus Tucker. One Tucker caught, it was out of bounds. The other one got tipped up and incomplete. So you see an arm from Bryn Renner. But I think after adding Zach Mettenberger, you have your three quarterbacks. The Steelers usually just carry three. They don't go any heavier than that. They don't usually have on the practice squad. So I think that quarterback room is set, and Bryn Renner is going to be on the outside looking in. Running back, Fitzgerald Toussaint getting the nod over Dale Richardson. Kind of more of the same. Richardson showing some explosiveness, had the biggest play of the day for the Steelers offense, which is not saying much, but a 26-yard run. It was a good explosive play and a big splash play, the only one of the day for Pittsburgh. That's kind of what we've seen with Daryl Richardson, and then that's kind of the scattering point, but that's good to reaffirm it, that you keep showing it every single game, keep reminding the coaching staff this is what I can bring, and I can be an impact kind of momentum changer. Toussaint, I thought he ran tough, decisive, maybe a little bit more decisive than we've seen in the past. The Philadelphia game comes to mind. But did not have the flash and the splash that Derek Richardson has. But they're both going to obviously be capped on the 53 to start things out with Le'Veon Bell going on the suspended list, and then, like I said, I think last week, we'll make that decision coming into week 4 before week 4 between those two. Should be interesting. Though. It's going to be a lot of fun to watch. Elsewhere, Cameron Stingley, he had one carry, he fumbled it. I know that fumble was a little debatable. It was upheld. I think it stood. It wasn't confirmed on review. But obviously, you turn the ball over. You're running behind Brandon Brown Dukes. Hard for me to see Cameron Stingley get a practice squad spot. I think it'll go to Brown Dukes. But we'll find out here in the next couple of days. Cuts. What is it? Saturday, I think, by 4 p.m. Teams have to get down to 53 guys. Tight end, again, just not a whole lot of bodies to talk about. Xavier Grimble, this was a huge game for him. A couple guys you could really circle this game. He was probably at the top of the list. If he had a really strong game, he was going to make a very compelling case to be the number 3 tight end on this team. Now, Darius Green is officially on reserve pup. He's going to miss the first 6 weeks of the season, but just did not see a lot from Grimble tonight. Maybe on my kind of deep dive into things, I'll see more as a blocker. But and I know it was tough to do anything as a receiver with kind of how sluggish and stagnant this passing game was tonight. But his one chance, he heard footsteps, he dropped the pass. You're gonna be a tight end. You got to be tough over the middle and got to have that trust. You can't be dropping passes because you hear a linebacker coming down on you. And the drops have been the issue for Xavier Grimble. So I think there's been progression with him in the preseason, but his training camp was, I think, below average, and he got quiet real quick. And while there was some progression as a blocker, it's not where the team probably needs it to be. And I don't think anything he's doing as a receiver is enough to kind of compensate for that. So, I think I had Grimble on my last 53-man roster that I did this past week, but I think this next time through, he's probably going to be on the practice squad. I think it might be better anyway. You can still keep Grimble around, and you can then sign a veteran tight end to be that number 3 guy, and then you have another crack at maybe developing Grimble for another season and at least taking another run at it. Next season, or if there's an injury, you bring him up midway through once he's gotten more reps. But I think they're probably going to, they're going to definitely look for a veteran tight end, and the waiver wire is going to be really really interesting because that initial 53 is not going to be set in stone for multiple reasons, whether it's Golson having to be on there initially to go to IR to be eligible for the to return eligibility, because there's no official tag for it now, but just to be on that list and be eligible for it. To whatever other injuries are there, Shamarko Thomas, Roosevelt Nix, whatever happened with Chicolo and Ricardo Matthews, who knows what's going on there, Cam Hayward, Marcus Gilbert status. 53 is going to be very fluid, basically up until Sunday night. I'm not going to say the 53 set until they take the field in Washington. Where was I? Wide receiver again, not a whole lot to talk about. Marcus Tucker had a couple nice effort plays down the football field. Good to see him get a lot of reps, and he makes it through the first 75, which probably was my one surprise. The one guy that I thought was going to get cut, maybe Paul Lang a little bit too, though I kind of understood it in hindsight. But I think Tucker has done well on special teams as a gunner and jammer, and that probably got him the nod over Levi Norwood and Isaac Blakeney. So that's probably where it came from, and it was just good that translates into getting a bunch of reps in this final game. And I thought he had the one catch, I think it was just the one, and he made some good plays downfield and had some good effort. So I don't think he's going to have a role, on the practice squad, but I think that's good tape for him. He's a good kid. He's got a great story, and that's those are the guys that you want to have this fourth preseason game for. It's the guys that have fought and had this story and this sacrifice and this journey and this dream, and you get to realize it in this one game. And it's not going to mean a lot to you and me, and we're going to forget about it 2 weeks from now. But he's never going to forget it, and that could parlay that into coming back in Pittsburgh, staying in Pittsburgh, going somewhere else. You never know, and so that's why I think the value of the fourth preseason game is. One other receiver note to Marcus Ayers. Again, it's tough to gauge receivers in a game like this, but punt return, he left that one. He was kind of flighty on it. Is he calling out the Peter call to get everyone to move? Is he going to fair catch it? He was kind of in between. The ball hit Steven Johnson's leg or ankle, and Carolina ends up recovering it. As much as we talk about splash and big plays and making guys miss and all that kind of fun highlight stuff, for a return guy, for me, I know it's like this for Danny Smith and Tomlin because they talk about it all the time, but it's about just good decision making and trust and getting square, getting under the football, ball security, not letting balls bounce that you should be getting under, and just making good decisions all across the board. And that was a bad decision by DeMarcus Ayers. Another one that I think the one that he did catch, he had a little trouble getting under, and it took him to the ground. You want to try to catch a little bit cleaner. It's not the worst, it's not super egregious, but it just kind of not a good night, I think, from a return standpoint for DeMarcus Ayers. And obviously, there's really no path to 53 with what Eli Rogers has done, and he'll fight for a practice squad. I mean, I think he'll get it. I've kind of got a little back and forth on it. I think he'll get it, but it wouldn't shock me if he didn't, because if this guy was an undrafted free agent, you probably wouldn't be thinking about him too much. And he's a 7th-round pick. I know that has some value, but if they only keep one receiver, which with all the injuries, who knows? They're pretty healthy at receiver right now. Knock on wood, whatever I got it. They're going to have to probably fix things somewhere else and maybe be a little heavier on the practice squad initially. So it could be, DeMarcus Ayers being an odd man out because of the numbers game. We'll see again. I think it's going to be very fluid with the 53 in practice squad just because of all the injuries. Let's see, the offensive line. Again, you got a lot of backups coming in. I think you had to play Villanueva, Ryan Harris more than what you wanted to. Those are going to, Villanueva's going to be obviously your left tackle. And if Gilbert can't go week 1, it's going to be Harris or right tackle. So yeah, that's kind of a little scary, but they made it out unscathed, which was good. Elsewhere, I thought Matt Filer did have a good game. At least kind of that first pass through. Again, offensive line is tough to time through, but I think he's got a nice body type. He's got a nice demeanor. He's got a little athleticism, ability to get a push from the first level defender and then work to the second level. He's kind of the best of the bunch, and he's made healthy. He's made it out healthy the whole way through, which basically no one else has done from the start of camp to now. So I think he's got a good chance to be practice squad. Plus, he has some tackle guard versatility. He's played right guard, played right tackle, played tackle in college. He was starting out at guard in camp this year with Pittsburgh, and probably most of last year when they brought him in. He was part of that Grimbo group last year when they had that big turnover on the practice squad. Chris Hubbard looked more natural at guard and then did okay at tackle. Again, he's going to make this team, especially now that Hawkins is done for the year. I think your offensive line is pretty much set. Hubbard and Finney, both making the team. Elsewhere, I think Filer has a practice squad spot, and I don't think anyone else has a chance. Hanson or Everett or Ahmed or any of them, those guys will probably all get cut. Defense now. The defensive line, again, we'll have to look at the injury to Ricardo Matthews. Tomlin didn't mention it specifically in his press conference. He just said nothing else notable outside of Travis Feeney's concussion. So I guess you can take that as a positive sign. I know Tomlin's always kind of very cagey with that kind of stuff and very coy, but it sounds like he's going to be okay. And again, hopefully the Ricardo Matthews is, because with Cam Hayward's status and availability and how can he be a 100% snap kind of guy and be out there for his regular role against Washington, kind of up in the air. Even if he does play, you're going to need Ricardo Matthews. Javon Hargrave had another nice game. Still want to see him against the run. He can get blown out when he's asked for two gap and try to anchor. I think you try to mitigate that as much as you can whenever he's on the field and play to his strengths, which he's going to be asked to two gap sometimes. But the real interesting thing I think with Hargrave was he started over McCullers. I thought when I saw Hargrave in, I thought McCullers wasn't healthy and wasn't going to play today, but he ended up second half basically, and then out there 5 minutes left in the fourth quarter, Daniel McCullers is out there, which starters aren't playing with 5 minutes in the fourth quarter. I know that you only have three nose tackles right now. It's not like it's wide receiver, where you're a lot heavier. But Hargrave I think might be your week one nose tackle. At least they might get both some rotation, some snaps in there. But that might be the pecking order right now because that's the way it was tonight. And Hargrave day was done pretty much about halftime, and McCullers was still playing late into the game. So something to watch there. McCullers didn't have a bad game, but he's going against guys he can just kind of overpower, and that's kind of what's going to happen anytime you're going against any guys that are young and inexperienced, and the talent level is just not there. Outside linebacker, man, it's more injuries than there really is anything to talk about. They got so beat up tonight, they had one outside linebacker left. They had Rasco, and so they ended up actually running four down fronts. They were basically running a 4-3 because they only had one outside linebacker because Chickalo hurt his right foot. Feeney got a concussion. Moats Day was done. Jarvis, Harrison, Bud, those guys didn't play because either they were held out of their own injuries. So it's just the injury bug, man. It's not as severe the way it was last year when you lose Pouncey and Sean Schweezum and things like that, but just the numbers of it really kind of shortens up the lines in a game where you were basically working with a 46, 47 man roster tonight. So you couldn't, you can't afford the injuries the way that you can in the first preseason game when you have your full 90 man roster and most guys available. So really don't have a whole much of an evaluation on that group. It's just funny they were playing 4-3 in base and they were running the 3-3-5. So if you see any article from any site or anyone on Twitter talking about, hey, the Steelers ran a 4-3 in this game, it's not because they wanted to, it's because they had to, because they literally had nobody left. It was Rasco, and that was it. Inside linebackers, kind of more of the same. I think LJ Fort's a lock to make this team, running over Medikevich and Steven Johnson, being a core special teamer. He's going to be that four-phase guy that's starting everywhere. So Fort, he's locked in, no doubt about that. The last spot, though, Steven Johnson, Tyler Medikevich, gone back and forth on it. I was sitting there doing my 53-man roster the other day, and it was like 1:30, 2 o'clock in the morning, and I was kind of going through my Saints game notes, and I was realizing that Medikevich was getting some first-team snaps on special teams. I didn't have Steven Johnson playing first team anywhere, so I was like, man, that's tough to justify putting Steven Johnson, even knowing some of the rationale we've had for Steven Johnson before. So I put Medikevich on there, and I'm going to look at it again tonight. The lines were thinner, so I think Johnson and Medikevich were both getting a lot more run, up the pecking order than usual. But it's close, and it's not that I'm worried about Medikevich getting claimed or that he's been such a stellar preseason, but you just see a guy running ahead of Steven Johnson, who I thought was going to be the new Terrence Garvin, a four-phase guy who can play and start and do everything fine. You're not really seeing that, so that's going to change your mind. That's new evidence to me, or at least new evidence in my mind that maybe the team had already known it. I think both were fine tonight. I don't think either were super, high or super low out there tonight. But maybe they keep them all. With all the injuries this team has, they could keep 11 linebackers. Again, this roster is going to be so fluid these next, even after the Saturday cutdown. It's going to be fluid that whole week, really. So it could go in a lot of different directions, and I'll have to kind of sit down and think about it one last time on my last prediction before final cuts end up rolling in. Cornerback Artie Burns out there, and he didn't get to play a lot, maybe a quarter and a half, a quarter somewhere around there. But it was a good first step, and it's just nice to have some positive news about Artie Burns. He had the breakup in the end zone, was physical coming downhill, being a reliable tackler. His run fills a little up and down. He had the one where he lost contain, and if you were listening to KDKA, Charlie Batch pointed out the Moats immediately after kind of talked to him and said you gotta hold and be the force player there and be the contain guy. There was one of the early plays, one of the second or third play of the game. I thought it was a counter run by the Panthers, and Burns had good force there, but there wasn't a receiver to his side so he could focus on the run responsibility more. On the one where he lost contain, I think there was a receiver that was coming in motion or running around or just kind of some sort of window dressing. Maybe he was cracking the linebacker or safety, and Burns went with him and lost his run contain, lost his run fill. So up and down in that regard, but a nice first step. You saw some stuff for Artie Burns. Again, prefacing that it's one game and it's against kind of the bottom of the roster guys. So it is tougher to do a true evaluation of where he could be in an in-game situation. Other guy to talk about is Duran Grant, and I don't know what to make of Duran Grant. Yeah, it's I tweeted out, and this is my fault. After a couple plays, I think that if you ever had to go to a next man up, a cornerback outside of Gay and Cockrell, I might take Duran Grant over Artie Burns. And then right after that, a couple passes thrown Grant's way. The broadcast is saying how Tomlin and Butler are chewing Grant out, and the thing I like about Duran Grant is that he's a physical guy. He's a good tackler. He's great downhill, and those are kind of some of the baseline things that Steelers cornerbacks have always had to be and still have to be, even as the system has kind of evolved a little bit. The things I don't like about Duran Grant, though, is I don't know how to judge his coverage. I don't know if it was terrible. I think some of those receptions were zone. I think one of them was probably cover 2 or cover 6, and they kind of threw, behind the corner and before the safety could close, Jordan Dangerfield could close. But I just feel like every game there's been some sort of issue, whether it was the first game against Detroit where Grant blitzed and he wasn't supposed to, against the Saints, where the touchdown the Saints had, there was maybe some sort of problem with Grant and Dangerfield. I don't know for sure whose fault it was, but Grant's in that area. Today, if what I think Bob Pompiani and Charlie Batch were saying was true, that Tomlin and Butler were getting after him for some sort of screw up, it just it goes back to Shamarko Thomas. Above the neck, can you be trusted in that regard? So, man, sometimes I feel like Grant could really be something. He's making strides because he's a physical guy and he is a really solid tackler. But sometimes I'm like, could this guy be phased out because the team's just not trusting him in year 2 and he's not making the jump above the neck and a consistent assignment standpoint that he's supposed to do and is expected to do at this point. No more scholarship. So I don't know about Duran Grant. I should really collect some more thoughts and rewatch the game a little bit before I go too crazy with any thoughts, positively or negatively. But I think I just need to be quiet and not tweet sometimes, but kind of let the game play out before I start dishing out my thoughts. Maybe a little lesson learned there. But I wasn't saying he's better than Artie Burns long term. I just think short term, and he's a guy that's taken all the reps. Burns is in his first game, and he's got only a couple weeks of practice time. And even though Burns did some good things, you're not seeing him against the quality competition. So you have a larger scope and larger information base with Duran Grant. And so I thought, first month of the season, until Burns kind of gets those reps back and gets back on the train, you could see a lot of incentive to play Duran Grant over Artie Burns. So hopefully it doesn't come to that. Maybe they get another corner off the waiver wire and he jumps both of them like Cockrell did last year. I don't know. It's the depth is still a concern with corner. I think that's pretty obvious, and even at safety, it's an issue in the secondary as well. Speaking of safety, Sean Davis kind of moving all around today. Played pretty deep into the game because again they're only working with like a 47-man roster or so. So you're gonna have to play guys more than what you have to, at least a couple of them. And so Davis started at safety. He moved the slot corner. He's playing into the third quarter. Was running down on kick and punt coverage. I think his tackling's been fantastic. Where he was the first game, and where he is now. I was talking to someone close to Sean Davis, and he's just saying how nervous he was for that first game. And Davis has come out and said that this is not me breaking any news or blowing anyone's mind, rookie being nervous his first game. But I think after that, his run defense, his open field tackling, you saw it at safety tonight. You saw it one punt coverage, that one nice punt that return, one of the many. Return team was bad tonight, but one of the many punt returns, he had the open field tackle, probably safe touchdown or safe some sort of big play. So that's all positive from Sean Davis. I think he's settled down in a nice way and is kind of shown to be the guy that Pittsburgh has drafted. And so there's some excitement there, but not over the top. But from a trusting, wrapping up, open field tackling standpoint, Sean Davis has improved a lot. Jordan Dangerfield, I think he's going to make the 53. Even if Shamarko Thomas is healthy week one, because there still is not a lot of depth at safety, and especially if Shark is not healthy week one, then Dangerfield has to make this team. He's got all the elements you want in a special teamer. He's active. He plays with his hair on fire. He'll sacrifice his body. He's a big hitter. Brings a lot of energy. Can wear a lot of hats on special teams. So he's not any different than what he's been before. I mean, I'm sure he's kind of matured and become more comfortable with this system and those kind of intrinsic things that you're going to get as you play more football. But I just think if you stick around the league long enough and you keep just showing enough and just kind of hanging on, eventually an opportunity is going to open up. And this year the opportunity is kind of meeting Dangerfield's skill set. So I think he's got a really good chance to make this 53-man roster, given the injuries and given his good play. Hats off to him. He's earning this spot. It's not given to him just because of the injuries. But again, it will be interesting if this team brings in off the waiver wire a safety or corner. I think it's going to be at least one. It might be both. That's kind of going to be the fun part to see how this roster shakes out. But hats off to Dangerfield. He had a kid earlier this year, so he wants to support his family and be able to make money for his family. This is a guy that got cut right before training camp last year. He ends up getting brought back, and he sticks around, and that's just kind of how it's happening. Now he's got an opportunity to finally make a 53 and make an impact in a game. Special teams, Jordan Berry had a nice night. The punt return unit, not so much. I think the Panthers averaged over 14 yards per punt on 4 returns, and there wasn't a return longer than 24, so there wasn't some sort of 80-yard return that was skewing things, so it was consistently bad, and that's it's not going to make Danny Smith happy. But it is last game. We will follow things the rest of the week, trying to figure out injuries to this whole 53-man roster. Again, Saturday, I believe it is Saturday, 4 p.m., 53-man roster has to be set. But from there, the Steelers are going to have a lot of moves to make. They're going to move Senquez Golson to injured reserve, so that's going to open up a spot back up on the 53 for someone like got cut or someone they want to bring in off the waiver wire. And then, whatever other moves happen based on the health of this team throughout the week. So it's going to, once you see that initial 53, don't freak out. Don't have too many judgments right away because it could change. We've seen, last year Durant Green, Anthony Chicolo originally make the team, they get cut, they end up getting brought back. It's a whole song and dance. So it might be a similar story, and it might be actually more severe and more aggressive in that regard of the turnover on the 53 last year. Same with practice squad. Last year they set the practice squad and they switched out half the 53-man roster. They brought in guys like Xavier Grimble, like Matt Filer, Isaiah Burse. I think Fitzgerald Toussaint might have been part of that group, or at some point Toussaint came on board. So a lot of turnover. I think it's going to be similar this year. The bottom of the roster is not the best. All the injuries have really hit this team hard, so I think you're going to probably see a lot of new faces being brought in, a couple for the 53 and several for the practice squad. So be sure to stay tuned with myself, Dave Bryan, Matthew. We have a whole lot of content coming out. Stick with us this weekend as we get you ready for finally regular season football, Monday, September 12th at Washington. Can't wait to finally really get into some things. We'll definitely start previewing Washington. We'll do a scouting report on them and take you through the week. So I know you're excited. I'm excited, and appreciate you guys for watching. Again, we'll do these recaps after every game. So follow us on Steelers Depot and subscribe to the YouTube channel you're watching this from. If you want to be one of the first to see this video and just go back and watch videos, I'm also doing a football podcast. A couple of buddies of mine from college. It's not getting posted on Depot. It's just kind of our own thing. We'll tweet out sometimes. So if you want to see that, they're kind of like 2-hour just rambles. But that's also on my YouTube channel. So thank you guys for watching, and we'll talk to you next time.